Jess here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So it is April 22nd, and I am coming off of a very, very rough week. If you saw last week's vlog, you'll know all about it, but suffice it to say it had a lot to do with some not so great things that happened last week, and I don't really want to get into them again this week. So that being said, I'm just going to tell you what my focuses are for reading this week. I'm currently in the middle of 3 books. The first is Wayward, which I'm reading for Phase 10, but I don't remember why. It's a good question, but it is on my Phase 10 TBR. I'm on page 125, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's a historical fiction, and we have a girl, I think her name is like Alpha, and she's in 1619 and is on trial for murder and is being accused of being a witch. We have Violet in 1942, which is during World War II, and her wondering more about her mother who died when she was young and struggling with her relationship with her brother and her dad. And we're kind of seeing some maybe potential to have some interactions with animals that maybe aren't something you see from your everyday folk, calling back to Alpha, or whatever her name is. And then you have Kate in 2019, who has just escaped an abusive relationship and is hanging out at her great aunt's cabin, cottage, which was left to her, and is tying into those stories. So I'm enjoying this so far, although it's a lot different than I expected, but not necessarily in a bad way. Then I started Sweep, the story of a girl and her monster. I'm only like 30 pages into this, but I was enjoying it, and all I really know about it right now is that it's about a young girl who is a sweep and who has no family, like a chimney sweep. And then I'm part way through the Winners. I'm on page 370, so about halfway, or maybe a little over halfway. And I'm enjoying this, but I put it down over the weekend because of the bad brain state that I was in. I felt like this was probably going to have things that wouldn't help with that, so I set it down, and I'm hoping to get back to it this week. Other things that I'm most likely getting to this week: Orphan Train. This is 100%. This is the only book on my Phase 10 TBR that I haven't at least started. The other 2 would be Wayward and The Winners, and I've obviously started them. So this is a very high priority, and it's a 5-star prediction, so I'm hoping I'm going to love this one. And then I have 2 books that are due back to the library, and I have no more renewals. And that is The Winter King, which I believe was a middle grade March book club pick for possibly December. So I really, really, really should try this one. And then Thorn, which was a book that came out of my TBR jar in January, and I requested it and was waiting for it, and I've gotten it, and I haven't read it. And this is the sequel to Ravenfall, and I really enjoyed Ravenfall, so I don't know why I've been putting this off, but that's kind of my week. After that, I am free to read whatever I want. And I have a bunch of options, so we'll see what direction the wind takes me when I get to that point. But that's kind of my plan for this week, is to get through the books I need to get through for my Phase 10 TBR, the ones I'm already in the middle of, and then, of course, the 2 that are overdue. I'm also currently, right now, sprinting, which is really, really fun. I haven't done a lot over the last week because it was a crazy week that did not lend itself to being live on the internet. We're also keeping our fingers crossed for no blue screen of doom, because I had one of those over the weekend, and it was terrifying because in the entire time I've owned a computer, I've never had that happen to me. So we're going to see how this goes, and yeah. Hopefully I will get a lot accomplished this week, because I know I tend to stay more focused when I'm sprinting. So we're going to see how it goes, and I will check back with you in a few days. Hopefully I'll have my Phase 10 TBR all done. Monday, and I don't think I've checked in with you all once. It has been a very long week, and I haven't wanted to be on camera, and the few times I have were Saturday when I needed to film my TBR game. And Sunday, when I sprinted, and at that point, I might as well just wait and wrap you up on Monday. So I have a lot, well, not a lot of books to get through. It wasn't the best reading week, but I'm going to run you through what I did read. So first up, I read Hollow Thorn. This is the second book in the Ravenfall series. And this follows two kids, Anna and Colin. And Anna comes from this like magical family that has all sorts of different abilities. And in the first book, she's really struggling to figure out how her ability is actually beneficial because she can touch people and see moments of their life, usually involving violence. And Colin, his parents have been murdered, and he ends up showing up at the inn that is run by Anna's family. And there is just a lot of stuff they have to deal with in book 1, and they're back in book 2, and things are continuing to happen with them because there's no such thing as a quiet life in this world. I gave this book 4.25 stars. I really, really enjoyed the sequel. It started off a little slow, but once I got into the meat and potatoes, I was really invested in Anna and Colin's story. I liked the way the world progressed in this and the way the storyline progressed and our main characters, Anna and Colin, because their growth in this book is very, very important. I'm very excited that there's going to be a book 3 because there is some interesting things that happen in this one that I think are going to be fun to explore in the next book. So hopefully next time I will not leave book 3 as long as I did book 2 because I really enjoyed this one and I don't know why I put it off so long. Then I picked up Wayward and I gave this 2.5 stars. So this is a historical fiction and it follows 3 POVs. We have, I believe, Kate. Yes, Kate in 2019, who is fleeing an abusive relationship and is going to go stay at her great aunt's cottage that the abuser does not know about. We have in 1619 Alpha, who is currently on trial for the murder of a man who's been stampeded to death, and it's suggested she might have used witchcraft to do so. And then in 1942, we're following Violet, and World War II is raging, and she is wondering about her mom and some of the rumors she's heard about her mom. So right off the bat, just based on the description, you immediately know there are trigger warnings in here for domestic abuse. And let me tell you, there is on-page stuff. So if that is something you don't want to read, I would suggest skipping this book. And there are others, but they're spoilers. So I would suggest if you're going to go into this book, know that there is some very triggering stuff in here and that you might want to look up triggers if you have some and think along the lines of the domestic abuse that you heard about, because that is, I don't feel like that's a spoiler because it literally says the abusive partner who tormented Kate right here in the summary. So I feel like it is very easy to know that that's there. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything with that one, but there are others that you should be aware of. So you might want to look up the trigger warnings for this one. And I thought that this was going to be a different book than it was. So I was really interested in the potential magic that these women had because I got the impression that maybe they weren't going to be so wrong about Alpha and we were going to see that kind of displayed throughout the book. I was really into certain POVs until certain things happened. And then I don't know. I could have easily DNF'd this, but I wanted to see how it wrapped up and if it got any better. And it just kept going like this as I went along. I was really into the idea of each of these women finding a way to kind of escape the situation they found themselves in and kind of become badasses. Because I thought that's where we were going with it, and that is not where we went. Or not exactly. I'm trying to say things without saying things. Anywho, this just didn't end up being a book for me. It did not click with me, and there are people in my life who, if they had read it before me, would have told me not to bother because they knew it wouldn't have clicked with me. So it is not a book for me, and I would suggest you check the trigger warnings because those are some pretty major ones in here. So be mindful before you read this, that this is not an easy book to read because of the content. Then I read Deep Sea Disaster, which was my Buzzwordathon pick, and I gave this 1.5 stars. So this follows Harry, and Harry is a hammerhead shark. and he goes to this school, and they're on like a field trip, and he lives in the ocean, keep in mind. So they're on an undersea field trip, him and his classmates, and he kind of gets bullied and pressured into going into a shipwreck, even though the teachers told him not to. And then he has to find a way to escape. So I didn't like the bullying aspect of this. There was some kind of like younger boy potty humor, which does not click with me. And there was also some things that didn't make sense given that they live underwater. And like it says, nurse sharks are the girliest sharks in the ocean, which is fine if you're a girl and everything, but I'm not. And there's other references to stuff like that I didn't enjoy reading in a middle grade. Or actually, I don't even think this is like full middle grade. This would be like young middle grade. So like the very early end of middle grade, because you have like illustrations and stuff. So I just did not click with the content of this book at all. The only reason it didn't get lower is because it does have at the end some facts about different kinds of sharks, which are sort of mentioned in the book. But like at the same time, there are better places you can get these facts for your kids. So this is not a series I would recommend. I didn't feel massively engaged. If it hadn't been so quick, I would have DNF'd it. I don't really know what else to say. Like, it just had some content in it that I wasn't a fan of, especially when giving it to kids. So this was another book that was very much not for me. Then I finished my reread of Mark of the Plague, which is the second book in the Black Thorn Key series, and I gave this 4.25 stars. This follows Christopher, who is the apprentice at, like, I believe it's an apothecary. And in the first book, his master is murdered, and he has to kind of figure out what is going on. And there's a big mystery with lots of clues that you can try to put together. And in this one, there's another mystery that Christopher has to try to figure out how to solve. And this book does involve a bit of a plague, which was interesting reading this, considering the first time I read this, it was pre-COVID, and now we're post-COVID. So it definitely changed my viewpoint of the book a little bit, because I understood a little bit more of what it would be like to live in a situation like that. But I really enjoyed my reread. I really love Christopher and the friendships he builds throughout this series, and I love how they're on display in this one, and we see them continue to grow. I like trying to put the puzzle pieces together, and again, I've read this and I did not remember how it all turned out. Like, some things were familiar, obviously, but I didn't remember everything, so it was really fun to get to rediscover this story and the mystery in this one. I like the setting because it's historical fiction, so it's got that old-timey feel as well. And I'm really enjoying my reread of this series. So I think it was brilliant that I decided to pick it up, and it was a fun read to listen to and dive back into. Then I read The Winners, and I gave this 4.25 stars. So this is the third and final book in the Beartown series, and Beartown is a series that is set in this hockey town called, well, Beartown, and a kind of scandal hits the hockey team, and we see how the entire town deals with this scandal. So we get tons of POVs, and both book 2 and then book 3 are seeing the ripples from that event in book 1. So I can't really tell you anything that goes on in this one. Just know it is in the future, and we're seeing how that event created those ripples and what happens after those events to the characters we have met along the way. We obviously meet some new ones, and I felt this was a little bit longer than it needed to be, and it dragged in a few places, hence why the 4.25. But by the end, I was completely invested. I cried, not gonna lie. This book got me very, very emotional. And I really love how Bachman made all of the characters feel very fleshed out, and you understood their motives and the way they were viewing things, which he did in the other 2 books as well. And it is so interesting to see everything from all the different perspectives. And I think he does a really good job of bringing those to life. And I am glad that I finally finished the trilogy. And it just reminded me how much I love Bachman's writing, and it makes me want to read more by him. So this was a really good read, although because of the content, I definitely set it down because of my mental health and had to go back to it because it is definitely on the heavier side content-wise. So it was something that I did a lot of self-care with when it came to reading it because I wanted to be able to enjoy it, not have it be something that created a negative connotation for me. So I'm glad I waited because I did end up really, really enjoying this. And then the last book I finished is The Winter King, and I gave this 4 stars. So we're following Cora, and she lives in this village with her mom, her 2 younger brothers, and her younger sister. Her dad died in an accident on the ice, and they live in this world where everybody bows down to this god known as the Winter King. And they've kind of been treated like they were cursed by him, and they live on the outskirts of the city and are barely making it by. Cora does not understand why the Winter King is so mean. He's like this god, and he lives in this room, and only one person, the High something, I can't think of the word, the High Alderman. The High Alderman is the only one that can be in his presence, because if anybody else goes into the Winter King's presence, they immediately die. They can't survive his godly powers. And he comes in the winter during the harshest months to kind of see over them due to this story about his bride being stolen, I believe, or taken from him. And they leave tributes, and Cora just wants to bring the Winter King down. She does not think that he is a just god. She thinks he is mean and cruel and doesn't understand how come she and her family have to live this way and what they could have done to anger him. So we're kind of seeing her dealing with all of the feelings that she is feeling over this and searching for a way to maybe bring to light some of his misdeeds and kind of, take him down a peg. And at the end of the day, all she really wants to do is protect the family she has left. And I was not expecting to like this as much as I did. I got really invested in Cora's story and wondering how she was going to prove that the Winter King was not what he was built up to be. I liked seeing the people around her and their views on it, and her trying to convince them, or being careful not to say anything because she knew they weren't convincible, to kind of, listen to her. I liked seeing the way the relationships she had developed throughout the book, despite her misgivings, because there are some people who are very into the idea of the Winter King and very attached to their faith with him. And it was just really intriguing to see her go through this winter season trying to figure out a way to make things better for her family in the long run. And I got emotionally invested in ways I didn't expect. I really enjoyed how the story kind of came together in the end and how it wrapped up, because that's not how I thought it was going to go. And I very much enjoyed this book in a way I was not expecting. So I'm glad that I gave it a chance and I picked it up and ended up enjoying it. It was a surprise. That is not all I've read, though, because I have started The Orphan Train, which is the last book I need to read for that, which is good because I took a reward. I'm on page 95, so I'm making decent progress. This is a 5-star prediction, so I won't be talking about it in this vlog. It'll be in my 5-star wrap-up vlog, but I wanted to let you know that I started it. And then, because it's overdue from the library, I have started The Mage. This is the 3rd and final book in the Foxcross series, and we're following Isla, who is a fox, who in the first book sets off trying to find her brother after her parents and her grandmother are killed. And she very quickly learns there's a lot more going on in the world than she thought, and learns about this power called Foxcraft that some foxes have the ability to use. And we've seen her on her quest in the first 2 books to find her brother, and I'm assuming this is where it's going to wrap up because it is a trilogy. I'm on page 108, and I'm already very invested in the story. I'm loving the direction this one has taken, and I'm very, very curious to see how all of the threads kind of wrap up in this one. So that was my week. Not the best week, but not the worst one either, at least with the amount of books. I've had a very up and down week when it comes to star ratings, because I had some books I really enjoyed and other ones that, well, I really didn't. But that being said, I think I'm going to wrap my vlog up here because I've shared with you everything and it's late and I kind of want to go to bed. So all of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video leave me? King? Emojis to do with kings? As that was a pleasant surprise that I like that. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.